for good people to get together to join forces in order to stop the spread of evil. Dr. Martin Luther King was one of the major forces which stood up to face that challenge. Dr. Martin Luther King had indeed great vision and great ambitions, great aspirations.
One of the things we're going to be doing more of from this point on is developing continuing interaction with the Muslim community, the Jewish community, the Buddhist community, and other religious communities. So we identify the oneness of all communities. We are all children of God. Whatever you call God, we're children of God. Whatever your religion is, we're children of God. And that's what we want to communicate to all people.
We are here to celebrate the 14th anniversary of the great man, Martin Luther King. And we know this is a patriot, a man who dedicated his life internally to work for harmony between races and for racial harmony and anti-discrimination.
It is God who creates us all. He is the one who creates our color, our tongue, and whatever you see or you don't see. We need to have the philosophy of humanity and the creation.
Our outlook on being able to communicate with people of different colors, uplifting the African American mentally from thinking of himself as always a poverty person, to give us back our own dignity. Dr. King is also responsible for those things that are not constantly talked about. You know, they talk about his fighting segregation, but he also gave us a new awareness. So, before Islam came to this country, many of the younger people had him as a guide and as someone to look up to help us to know that we are better than they thought of us.
He was a source of goodness to every miserable person in the world. He was a person who called for peace. He called for giving the poor.
My heartfelt thanks to Cliff Fraser, who has become a true friend and a confidant to me over the years. Cliff, thank you very much. Before we began, Cliff came into the sanctuary and I asked him to please put on a yarmulke, kippah, head covering. And, of course he did that. But then Cliff said to me, "Oh, Rabbi," he said, "do you have any bigger head coverings?"
I'm not looking for the next Dr. King. I want to find Dr. King in you, in us. And it doesn't have to be something big and grandiose. It can be some of the small things that are done, like tutoring a child that needs some help. The lady upstairs on the 6th floor who's confined pretty much to the apartment, can't get out too well, going shopping for her. Doing these small things that become big things, particularly to the person you're doing it for. So Dr. King was a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-century person. Dr. King was so great that he reverberated around the world. How many Dr. Kings are you going to find? when Dr. King was born. So in essence, we're celebrating his birthday today as they will be celebrating his holiday tomorrow. So this is Dr. King's birthday. And he's smiling down on us, enjoying the beautiful, beautiful voices, the beautiful, beautiful sounds of these wonderful singers. So thank you very much.
With wisdom and power, he reigneth with wisdom and power all across the nation, all across creation. Great is the Lord, great God, great God, great God, great God.
Resonance and its truthfulness and its utter prescience for our lives. When he made the remarks, of course, talking about the war in Vietnam, wars continue. And so do all of the struggles that Dr. King worked so hard for. And it's always a great privilege for us at St. Bartholomew's to be the last stop on this day of interfaith remembrance of his life. I expect for many of us in this room who certainly are my age, which I will not share with you my age, but for many of us, he was one of, if not the most significant people in our growing up years.
In Buddhism, we greet with our palms joined together like this. There are many different meanings. I want to introduce one thing that we greet in recognition of what we call Buddha nature, but also you can think of your God nature in you. Myself and you become one. Dr. King summed up this dilemma perfectly when he delivered this speech. Quote, "If we are to go forward, we must go back and rediscover those precious values that all reality hinges on moral foundations and that all reality has spiritual control. And I believe every one of us here is seeking or already have found the path to the spiritual life. For some people, Christianity is the path. For some people, Islam is the path. For some people like myself, Buddhism is the path, and there are many more. We should remember Dr. King's vision, his vision of brother and sisterhood, and his practice and his dedication to practice of nonviolence. And I don't think his practice of nonviolence and harmony is limited to his Christian circle. His vision has no boundary. And look around. This is his vision, I see.
What was Martin's purpose? I tell you the purpose. The purpose was to awaken the consciousness of America and let us know that all men are created equal. The purpose. I tell you, Martin had a purpose. The purpose was the intention. The purpose was the plan. And it was a good plan and for America to follow. The plan is to love one another and to treat all mankind equal. That's a pretty good purpose. Not only did Martin have a purpose, but he also had a passion. Martin loved America. Martin loved his brothers and his sisters. He loved America so much so that, and he had a passion for this country in such a way that Martin himself saw in a dream that one day his children would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin, I tell you, had a passion of love. He had a strong feeling for us as brothers and sisters. Remember, brothers and sisters, keep the dream alive. Martin will never die in our hearts.
We won't let segregation turn us around. We're gonna keep on the singing, keep on the praying, marching up freedom's road.
In 1963, in a letter from the Birmingham jail, he wrote, "I am coming to feel that people of ill will have used time much more effectively than people of goodwill. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the vitriolic words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. We must come to see that we human beings can progress, and progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and persistent work of men willing to be co-workers with God. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively and forever realize that time is always right to do right. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy and transform our pending national elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity.
Lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm. Take my hand, Lord, and lead me.
I know that even to some extent in people I'm close with, somehow think that, well, maybe are they really entitled to the same rights? It's always easy to find exceptions, and there are a lot of practical reasons that people can come up with to make one community somehow less worthy than another, or one person less worthy than another. So my personal commitment at this time is to try to see who I'm making exceptions for, who somewhere in my heart is not worthy, and to have a clear look at that. And then to think who in my immediate reach, it's not always about, it's such an honor to have a big platform to be on the stage, but it's really our interactions with the people closest to us that matter the most.
Anybody ever heard of the bus boycotts? You guys ever heard of that? Well, check this out. For over a year straight, as a group, we chose not to ride the buses because we weren't being treated fairly, period, point blank. So for a year, we walked together. We rode in our cars together for a whole, more than 18 months. So that's 2 school years. For 2 school years, thousands of people did not get on the bus because they made a point. You're not going to treat me fairly, well, you're not going to get my money. And that's the bottom line. And so then what changed? People started thinking, we got to treat these people a little bit differently because they're taking a stand. They're committed to this. And you've got to do the same thing because a change will come.
As a non-governmental organization and association to the United Nations, it is our conviction that the universal values embodied by Dr. King are inherent to all faiths and traditions. This is evident as we're all here today. We are committed to continue collaborating with the New York Metropolitan Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolence and other partners beyond this day to carry forth our common endeavors. The world needs more models of harmony and outreach that ignite our creative spirit today and for future generations. I want to thank all of you for coming, and I'm so privileged again to be part of this wonderful, steadfast team.